Oh, there it is. On the air. Good afternoon. I will call to order the October 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves.
Here.
Commissioner Guyer.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman. Commissioner Kiriakou.
Here.
Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Magana.
Here.
Commissioner Mosby.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Patino.
Here.
Commissioner Stark.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Hartman, Commissioner Kiriakou, and Commissioner Lee are absent.
Commissioner here. Kiriakou is here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my apologies. Commissioner Hartman and Commissioner Lee are absent.
Thank you. At this time, please stand and join the commission in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of September 4th, 2025, regular meeting. Does anyone wish to pull anything?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Guyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman. She's back here. Commissioner Kiriakou.
Aye.
Commissioner Magana.
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Stark.
Aye.
Chair Patino.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item of business is administering the oath of office to elected regular special district member Commissioner Johnson. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, there are no requests to speak on this item.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, will you please administer the oath of office to our new commissioners?
Yes. And Commissioner Johnson, if you would please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. Oh,
Madam Chair, if I may, note of clarification on the agenda item. I indicated that this term was till March 1st, 2027. Correction to that error, it's actually 2026. So Mr. Freeman's position was terms out in 26, and so we'll note that for the record, and then we'll allow there to take the oath and then be seated until 26, which later I'll explain the rules on how we're going to extend that position. But
Thank you.
For now, I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, I'd wish to note that Commissioner Hartman is here.
thank you. Commissioner Johnson, if you would please repeat after me. I, and please state your name.
Dory Lee Johnson.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Yes, Dory Lee Johnson.
Do solemnly swear or affirm
Can you repeat that? Yeah, I solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and to the Constitution of the United States
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take the obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. So now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Did we receive any requests to speak on items not on the agenda?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak under general public comment.
Good. The next item is business item number 1. Will the clerk please read the item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding amendments to the Commissioner Handbook and provide direction to staff to return at a future meeting with any changes and/or additions as needed to address retention and destruction by adopting a resolution.
And Executive Officer Michael Prater will be making
Thank
the
you, Madam Chair.
presentation.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So for this business item, this is a returning business item from our May meeting. This was presented back in May. The commission had requested that we gather some additional details about how we would administer the policy along with the destruction form. So staff has contacted 2 document management companies on ways in which they would process the documents and develop the retention options for you. The first company was Complete Paperless Solutions. They offered kind of the Cadillac version of everything, which was a Laserfish document and scanning production, full management system. Second was a local company, the Tri-County Reprographics. It was more of a comprehensive document scanning, really aimed at developing searchable PDF documents that had a naming convention that we could then house on our local server. So with that, we had requested that both of those look at an estimate gauging about 50,000 records. And I'd indicated in the May meeting, we think we have near close to 100,000 records. But I wanted to make it a reasonable request and potential contract if the commission was amenable to it. So we started at a 50,000 level. We have prepared the draft policy on records retention. Largely, this follows state statutes of what's a record, how long would we retain those records, and essentially, and added a component of a destruction form so that everything would come back to the commission should we be in a point where we are able to destroy a particular obsolete record. I will note that the statute does require that we have a backup version of that's in a version that does not allow a member of the public that's requesting that document to modify the document itself, and that we have a secondary backup that's offsite or in some other location than our main location of our documents. And so the first stage that we're trying to get is just to get a policy on the books, hopefully get some direction to come back with Tri-County Reprographics to enter into a contract service agreement to start scanning the initial set of documents as a follow-up action for the commission. And then we still have on our organizational books to do is come up with this other location of storage, whether that be a cloud system or a backup drive that we can manually moved to different locations. That all still needs to be done far in advance before we actually get into any destruction of any real documents itself. So that is the presentation that I'm presenting. This is an amendment to the Commissioner's Handbook, Section 6, and we are asking for it to be adopted by resolution so that the record is clear. If there's any questions about the policy or about the proposals that were presented, I'd be happy to answer any.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I have one in Santa Barbara.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And this may be putting the cart a little bit before the horse, so please forgive me. Have we given strong consideration to what would be kind of the schema for which items would be scanned and stored versus which ones would be scanned and stored and available for public review on the sblafco.org website? I think there may be records that are sitting in deep storage that would be of potential interest or even relevance to current and future processes coming along. So I was just curious if we had gotten that far yet.
Commissioner Kariako, through the chair, we have not. Right now, we're just hoping to be able to scan the primary documents, which are the bulk of file applications of annexations that have occurred, primarily through the years from Executive Officer Braitman and his tenure. We have a number of files on the various cities that I think would be pertinent. Many of the service reviews have already been scanned, and we have them in our file, but we're not hosting them on our website. So that what we host on the website may be up for discussion at a later time, but certainly we want to be able to make all of these records available to a member of the public should they put a request in to see any of the documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Aceves?
Just out of curiosity, as we go through documents, we scan them and then the order of destruction. I'm just wondering, is there a way to identify documents that may have some historic value that we may not want to destruct? I mean, I could see scanning them, but then retaining them. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, Commissioner Aceves, through the chair, certainly. If there's documents, certainly the incorporation of Goleta is a very important set of documents. I don't know if we're interested in destroying any of those because of their importance and value, and there may be others. Much of what I think at the tail end, when we eventually get to a point where they become obsolete and being able to be destroyed, are things like payroll reports from commissioners from 2005. Right, though I think that's where we're going to start with when we get there. But again, we can't even destroy those until we have a full backup system of our backup system, and we're not there yet. So unfortunately, we're going to be retaining many of these documents, and it may be my predecessor that eventually gets to inherit this particular program. But I want to be able to get something on the books and a protocol for them to be able to follow now.
So there is an importance for redundancy.
Any other questions?
Just
I just want,
go ahead.
Oh. Santa Barbara?
Oh, just a quick response to Commissioner Aceves.
Yes.
He should know that Michael Bennett, his former colleague, gifted me several boxes of LAFCO materials that I'm more than happy to gift to LAFCO and may meet some of his curiosity needs.
Thank you. Commissioner Stark?
yeah, I just want to get some clarity. My understanding is what we are called upon to do today is to adopt the resolution Exhibit F to your staff report, is that correct? And that adopts a policy, and then you're going to come back at some later time with a recommended contract, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm asking for two motions today. One is to adopt the resolution as the exhibit that implements the policy and its attachments, and then a second motion to direct staff to come back with contract with one of those two companies.
Is there any reason we can't do this in one motion?
You could probably do it in one motion.
Sure. Okay, any other questions, comments? Is there any public comment?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions or a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution making the determinations and establishing a policy on records management of the commission and directing our staff to return with a recommendation for a contract with an appropriate vendor as identified in the staff report.
Hartman will second.
I'll
I have
second
a
it.
motion and, okay, I have a motion in a couple of seconds. So Hartman, and I don't know, it wasn't Mr. McGowan. Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Magana.
Aye.
No, my apologies. How do I? Okay. Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Patino.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is business item number 2. Will the clerk please read the item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to consider next steps regarding continued discussions with cities and special districts when adopting spheres of influence.
Thank you. And our executive officer, Mr. Prater, will be making that presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So the commission directed that this business item be returned to discuss what next steps might be after being presented with an SOI conditioning report that we published last month. So within the fairly quick turnaround, staff was able to put together what we thought were kind of 4 options available to the commission that we could think of in the time frame that we had. Essentially, the 4 options include option A being kind of a enhanced status quo approach, where we are currently engaged with the cities to develop a memorandum of agreements. Some of that work has slowed and become less of a higher priority within the representatives. And so under this option, we would identify the respective seats, both on city and county, that sit on LAFCO, be able to bring back to their respective bodies the need to make that a high priority and direct their respective staffs to work with LAFCO staff in engaging at a higher level these communications for an MOA to be a bit more successful. Ultimately to the point that we engage in a structured framework for a document itself. So we've been having decent discussions about where boundaries might go, where interests are, but we really haven't gotten to that next level of conversation, and we certainly haven't gotten to what kind of standards and expectations that would be on any of the entities that are thinking about a memorandum of agreement. And so that level of detail really needs to be fleshed out more, and that requires a higher level of engagement. And right now, that hasn't been placed as a high priority amongst the agencies that we're dealing with. They have other workload bandwidth issues to keep the ball rolling. So option 1 is to sort of emphasize that a bit more, and any commissioner that wants to participate kind of more on an involuntary basis to join in those discussions are welcome to kind of encourage that conversation to keep going. So that's option 1. Option 2 was presented to simply have the commission develop an ad hoc committee, a committee of 3 members. That committee would sit down, have on a limited basis, a handful of meetings if necessary to develop and flush out what kind of engagement program you want to develop. With that option, depending on where the ad hoc committee goes with that, it could alter our staff's work program and even our budget allocation for that level of work, depending on the details of that ad hoc committee's recommendation. Option C, which is the recommended option from staff, that is to appoint an individual commissioner as acting more as a liaison position. So you'd have direct involvement. Most likely, I think we have city representatives that would want to represent their city and kind of hold a dual hat, a dual role, so that they can inform their city councils of what LAFCO as a broader commission is thinking and engaging, to keep a broader perspective in mind. And then they would sit also as their city representative and engage on the city's behalf of interest and where they'd like to see these conversations go. And then for the cities that don't have representation, we'd appoint a different member from the commission to act as that liaison, and they would sit along with staff. Under this option, we're shifting most of the responsibility and focus onto the city and their staffs, because they have high importance of figuring out where they want to potentially grow beyond their existing city limits. So we'd hand over the responsibility for them to put together whatever public engagement outreach there would be. The liaison and myself would attend all of these meetings and participate and keep the focus mindful of what is LAFCO's perspective in this, while the city member acts in a dual role to understand what their city interest is, plus understand what can feasibly be passed ultimately from the commission as a majority vote. Option D is to then fully engage in public workshops in which your staff would be involved in organizing those. Most certainly, we would probably end up needing to hire an outside contract to help facilitate that work. Again, altering our work plan and our budget resources as an option. So those are the 4 recommendations of options that I presented. The commission's free to discuss amongst those and either select an option that you'd like to direct your focus to be moved towards, or continue this discussion, and we'll continue to have discussions on other options that we might be amenable to the commission. So with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Any questions of Mr. Prater?
Yeah, Commissioner Guyer, I have a question. Has staff received any input from the cities of the county as to what option they recommend?
For this particular report, Commissioner Guyer, through the chair, the cities have not been necessarily informed. This was a very quick turnaround based on last month's meeting in which the agenda packet was due in 2 weeks. So I didn't have enough time. Our focus has been primarily on municipal service reviews with the city. And I can tell you through that document, the cities have been fairly responsive and vocal about what their desires and needs are. So that document is picking up much of the conversation of where they have expectations of where they want to grow. But this nuance of what kind of level of engagement, we have not addressed any of the cities with this.
As a follow-up, I would really favor actually sending, LAFCO sending a letter to the cities and the county requesting input. If they don't give any, well, then go forward.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Patino. My first question had to do with, in the staff report, the discussion. Outside of the various options, Mr. Prather, we're talking about reaching out to the cities and saying, okay, you have a sphere of influence. What's your plan there? So there's two different things here. What's your plan with your existing sphere of influence as well as increasing your sphere of influence? And I think what you're talking about here a lot, and what most of the cities are talking about, is increasing their sphere of influence in that discussions. But we also have this other conversation that we're having about what are you doing to the existing sphere of influence? And so, and that's been a pretty topical issue in various parts of the county. The way you have it set up right now, it looks like that we're going to ask them to come up with a plan sometime in the next 5 years. And, that's something that I would like to see a much shorter timeline on that piece, as well as, if there is no interest initially. That's one of the kind of things I had mentioned, because it's some of these, cities may have zero interest in expanding or to actually moving forward with those previous spheres of influences that were put in place by past generations of leaders. And so, I think some of these are really low-hanging fruit. And so I'm hoping that it's something that this is addressed sooner than later and not necessarily part of these options. Can you speak to that a little bit? And then I do have some comments on the options.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Commissioner Nelson, through the chair. Certainly, I think we are going to continue to engage with the cities about what their desires are and about what their expectations are. As outlined in sort of the report that goes into a bit more detail, those conversations of the 8 cities that reside within our county, 6 of them have expressed some form of expansion. And it may entail retaining their existing sphere. It may entail swapping out areas, foregoing the existing sphere and expanding in a different location. Those are all on the table for discussion. That will continue. Those levels of discussions are quite involved and will take quite some time. So my anticipation is that we will not resolve necessarily to the extent that we are ready to adopt a sphere of influence for any of those 6. The only 2 that are willing to accept their existing sphere is the city of Carpinteria and the city of Guadalupe, which are essentially coterminous or very minor 1 or 2 parcels in the city of Carpinteria. Beyond that, there is a need and a desire and interest in expanding the other 6. So as we hold these conversations, they may want to relinquish some of that land, what's already in their existing sphere of influence, which will be part of the conversation ultimately, and ultimately a recommendation that will come forward. However, we are trying to be consistent with the Cortez-Enoch-Hertzberg Act, trying to be consistent with our municipal service review program, and adopt spheres of influence on a more or less 5-year time frame cycle. The spheres of influence for most of those cities were last adopted in 2017. So their update would have been 2022. However, we've been engaged in this service review, acknowledging that we were wanting to understand the fundamentals and get a baseline before we adopted spheres of influences for each of those. And so, as I outlined in the report, the expectation is we will largely recommend, from staff's viewpoint, a status quo on all of the city's spheres of influence. And that's largely because we understand there is a tremendous amount of additional work that needs to go into understanding where they want to grow, where would the affected agencies, primarily the county and its obligation, accept the growth of those boundaries. In addition to that, we are working through a SOLT grant opportunity that would help inform much of that information. That is a 2 to 3 year timeframe. So my expectation is that in order to get through the length and discussion and breadth of those elements, we will be pushing out much farther than anticipated. So rather than haphazardly just draw a boundary, for which I'm not sure this commission has a majority vote on any one of the city's expectations. So the standard practice is to just accept where their sphere boundary lies today. That boundary has been in existence for well over 30 years. Ever since the early 2000s when service reviews were adopted, the mantra and protocol has been just to readopt the spheres of influence for all of the cities and for all of the special districts. Quite frankly, not one boundary has changed since the early 2000s. The only time boundaries really have changed is when an individual application has come forward for an application amendment. And so we are certainly taking a different approach using the service review, getting engaged in memorandum of agreement conversations, seeking alternate sources such as the grant to sort of help inform decision-making, that I don't want to use this board, this commission as a leverage to just make a quick decision because, we want to get things moving. I understand that. I understand there needs to be movement, but there's a long history of kind of just rolling along with these boundaries the way they were. And I want to give those cities and the county, quite frankly, equal opportunity to sort of study the issue and hopefully come together on a compromise so that there's give and take about where these boundaries should legitimately be placed.
I would, if I could follow up on that, I don't like the characterization of haphazard. I think that a lot of this, does have a long history, but that's why we're up here to make these decisions, not just adopt what's been there forever in the way that we've always done it. If you always do it the way you've always done it, you're always going to get what you always got. And we do have a history of that here within this organization and this county. So I'm not satisfied with that. I mean, as you won't be surprised by that. I will be looking forward when we adopt them to having a more robust conversation besides just status quo. And one of the things I've been requesting for quite some time is just a basic question to some of the cities. Like, just ask.
Yeah.
We're just assuming that this is what they want. We're making a lot of assumptions without actually having the questions and engaging with the cities. What do you want? What are your plans? And if you don't have any plans, then we should act on it. I mean, that seems really simple from our bodies, because right now we're kind of in limbo in a lot of different places because there is no certainty because nobody's talking. And if somebody doesn't talk, I think they should lose that privilege to have, that sphere or that influence on the process. So, I'm going to be pushing for that. I'm hoping that you're going to talk to cities, before we come to some type of adoption. If everybody's, this is their plan and they want to expand and that's the game plan, great, then let's have that conversation. But if it's not a part of their plan, if it was something that was historic in nature and not something that the direction of their current councils, then we should know that and not have to have a conversation in 2031. I mean, I think that's pretty far out there, and it's beyond when I would like to make a decision on some of these things. So that's speaking to that piece of it. As far as the options are concerned, one of the questions I did have about option A, we have a grant that's basically predicated on option A. So you're giving us some other options, including a recommendation for option C, but we actually have a grant right now that's kind of all about option A. So can you help us balance that out? I want to kind of understand your perspective on that, since we've already committed down option A route. I'm interested in some of these other options and having a discussion with my colleagues on that, but I feel like we've already kind of committed to doing option A as a LAFCO board, and we have a grant to that effect. So how does this affect the grant?
Certainly, if the commission will allow me, I would like to go back to try to help add to the conversation on the previous note. We will be asking the cities of where they want their spheres boundaries drawn before we bring the final resolution that draws their boundary. So that is part of it. If they do have an expectation to not go in an area and they want that withdrawn, that's going to be part of the recommendation. So that is, I want to make that clear. The other thing I want to make clear is we had this conversation last month when we were talking about spheres of conditioning and when the commission can act on spheres. Again, you can act and direct staff to bring forward a sphere change at any time. So we're not necessarily having to wait 5 years, even though that's sort of the recommendation moving forward that I've been kind of on the bandwagon with, is like, hey, I think we ought to just readopt these spheres, give them a condition that says put together an annexation plan. If you don't, then we're probably going to remove that sphere. However, as noted in the report, whenever we change significant portions of spheres, we have to comply with CEQA. So right now, we don't have an exemption that would qualify us to just strip large swaths of land from cities' spheres of influence. So that's going to require a higher level of analysis, probably a negative declaration. In some cases, we can tear off of some EIRs from some of the cities that have done general plan amendments. But that involves that whole EIR, that whole CEQA process, right? There's more time involved, more elements that have to go into that. And I'm okay with doing that. And if that delays some of the cities, because the cities themselves have that interest to change, and the commission is directing changes, whether it be a retraction, an addition, or a combination of both, whatever the majority of the commission directs staff that you want to see for those spheres, for those cities, staff will do our darndest to couple that with the right appropriate documents. And that will mean probably a CEQA document that adheres to whatever change that may be. So we don't currently know where those new boundaries may exist. If they are expanded, we'll have to look at those site-specific locations and determine, is there a physical impact that could potentially occur, and do analysis. That's what I'm talking about. So we haven't engaged that level yet, but that will have to occur, and that may cause some delay. And I'm okay with that, that kind of delay, if we think it's going to take us another 3-6 months to address one or two of these cities. We'll just continue to not adopt their sphere. Come early 2026, we'll move them further along until we get the appropriate documentation for them. But for others that are going to be settled about where their boundaries are, I would like to just get a resolution adopted, amend their boundary, or, and actually my recommendation will be maintain their boundary as is, and allow this whole exercise of communications and conversations and grant work to sort of flourish, so that we can get better information to the commission before you may ultimately make that decision. And through that process, those boundaries and these conversations, if you were to act as a liaison or engage more into the MOA process, will drive where those locations may be, where they may be pulled back from, and we'll get a better sense of how much time, when can we prepare ourselves for an actual adoption of those boundaries. So hopefully that's part of this conversation. It's not, let's just adopt the boundary and forget about them for 5 years. I certainly don't want to do that. To answer option A component, that is largely tied to the work we are doing with the grant. Later on, we have a grant item, but I'll spill the tea now. We are recommended for that grant. So the report came out yesterday. We are one of 4 that are being recommended by the Department of Conservation, and we were actually spotlighted in their report. So we have, I think, a really good chance, high probability that we're going to be engaged in that effort. With that said, that effort is looking at the use of the information to help inform the memorandum of agreement conversation. We have cities, city representation, we have county representation, we have outside organization representation, all partners in this effort. But ultimately, that is sort of a side conversation and public outreach to garner that information, to do mapping and GIS work, and studying existing policy work. Option A that I view this as being different is we're then now asking these commissioners to go back to their respective representative boards, and through your identified work programs at your county and city level, you are directing your staffs to make it a high priority within their work plan, right? Right now, we have a few people here and there that are working on it, and they'll do some effort with the grant, but it really hasn't become their high priority work plan. So option A says, let's go back and make it a high priority work plan, and that you'll commit to doing that. And that's the difference between that and the recommendation ultimately that I'm making. And because I don't want to put that onus on you as representatives to alter your staff's workflow and work efforts, I thought a better option was to do option C, which is then you take yourselves and become the implementer of that, and you engage in more work. And you become a liaison as you sit on LAFCO and you sit on your representative county and city members. So that's why I chose option C, because I didn't want to necessarily try to direct you county, city folks to change your work plan.
And do you see these as regional? Or by city by city?
City by city.
Okay, I want to make sure, clarification.
Commissioner Stark?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could ask our EO a couple questions. First, I think driving importance. When is the grant decision going to come out? When it would be useful for us to know whether we got the grant in hand or not.
Commissioner Stark, through the chair, October 8th, they're holding a meeting in Eureka, and that recommendation will be presented. They'll make a decision.
So by the time of the next LAFCO meeting, we're going to know one way or the other, probably?
We will know whether we have been actually awarded. There'll be conversations between their staff and your staff about what that agreement looks like. That's a later informational item for the commission to understand more details on. And then ultimately, the expectation is that we would enter into that agreement in January.
It occurs to me that the thing that we might want to do now is to write a letter to them, and I might suggest we might want to wait until we know whether we got the grant or not. I would think that a city's going to have a lot more impetus to work with us if we got the grant in our hand than if we say, oh, we might get a grant. That would be one thing. If we say write them a letter, say what our intent is, tell them we got the grant, and ask them what their intention is before we commit to any one of these specific processes. I should say that I don't have a lot of love for ad hoc committees, commissioner liaisons, it's not a lot, multiple commissioner liaisons, or workshops, which tend to be difficult to keep within a structured agenda. I'd rather toot our horn a little bit and ask them what their intent is, and then we can get a better read on which direction we want to go. All things being equal, I'd rather not spend a lot of money up front or commit to spending a lot of money up front before we know it. So maybe that's an option E, which I think is something that Commissioner Nelson had indicated. Yeah, write the cities, find out what they want to do, and I would suggest that maybe the time to do that is after we know what the grant decision is.
Question in Santa Barbara.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this may have been said somewhat definitively, but just to get it on the record, is there anything about the terms and conditions of the grant that would be violated if we went with something like option D? I'm assuming not, because there would still be an MOA element to it. There would still be cooperation with the cities. My understanding is 7 of the cities are engaging already with LAFCO to a certain extent on this.
There wouldn't be anything in violation. Option D includes engagement through public workshops. And the engagement, that engagement will happen through the grant work, irrespective, but we could hold independent workshops discussing and kind of paralleling some of those conversations. But the focus of the grant work will be strictly on the identified scope within that grant, where if we hold our own workshop, we can tailor that conversation to whatever the commission wants to hear, predominantly from the community.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think I'd like to speak in defense of the wild and unruly workshops that could go off agenda. So, you know, I think it's easy to sit here and say that we should just be engaging with the cities and have them tell us what they want and all of those types of things. But I think we're missing an important regional component of this, which is what happens in the cities won't stay in the cities. And depending upon which city we're talking about and what kind of a sphere of influence concept change we're discussing, there could be a few unincorporated residents engaged and, you know, have their life change a little bit, or you could have a lot. And so I think, you know, and having LAFCO as a bit of a neutral arbiter as opposed to a city-led workshop, I think has some value that we shouldn't just discard. Being able to have regional conversations, to Commissioner Nelson's point, you know, if you have a regional conversation related to the city of Santa Maria, you know, I could imagine a lot of Orchid folks would be interested, a lot of Guadalupe folks would be interested, and so on. Just like I think if you had one in the Goleta area, you'd have a lot of unincorporated Eastern Goleta Valley folks, or even Hope Branch folks that would be interested in those kinds of conversations. And I imagine Santa Barbara and Carpinteria would also be interested in having these kinds of conversations. So I can get on board with option A, but I'm also actually very intrigued by option D.
Any other comments or questions from Santa Barbara? I would like to make a few comments here. I made the announcement at our city council last month that we were looking to do this through LAFCO, and which I thought was really appropriate for Santa Maria because we will be bringing our general plan to the city council in December. So it's like we're ready to go with this, but in Santa Maria we have to prepare by 2045 for 30,000, 40,000 more people. And so, for instance, we have a policy that says, what is our policy? We need 5 acres per 1,000 people. Okay, so that means we're going to need probably like 600 more acres just for parks, and that's part of our policy. But then when you come to doing schools, we're looking at having maybe 8 elementary schools, so they require 8 to 12 acres depending. We're looking at having 3 junior highs. They require 20 to 25 acres. We're looking at 3 high schools, 40 to 60 acres. So right there, you cannot do those in infill with what we have in Santa Maria. So you're talking with the parks and with just schools, you're looking at over 1,000 acres that we have to put. That doesn't count for fire stations, that doesn't count for, for infrastructure, that doesn't count commercial, retail, and residential. So I think this is really sort of exciting. We will be going back to our city because we're a heavy ag community. That is the engine that drives us, and we need to consider and have the ag community at the table when we talk about all this. And again, we're limited. We can't go west. And of course, San Luis Obispo County is to our north, so our only option is to go east. So those are our options out there, and everyone wants Santa Maria to stay small and to stay the same. And of course, you have to tell all those people that want to move in that is not going to happen. And then with the regional thing with SBCAG, we haven't decided where we're going to do that one interchange because it depends where we build east of the freeway. So all of these things are intertwined, but it's going to take a lot of time to get all of the people at the table, the stakeholders we need to have a good discussion on this. But we saw what happened with Lompoc, because they're sort of isolated too. They can't build out. So everyone wants to come to the coast to live, and there's only so much space left for us. Anyway, any other questions?
I've had my light on for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you. I guess a lot of my thoughts revolve around the issue of timing. And let me start out first with the SALC grant. October, it'll be announced. 4 have been recommended. Is that for the existing funding? I mean, is this a staff recommendation to a commission that will then likely rubber stamp, or are we among 4 finalists and only a few will be awarded, or 1?
As I understand it, as I read the report, there were 4 applications for the planning grant, and all 4 are being recommended, which is just over $2 million in grant funding.
So it looks very, very good. So we'll know in October. So I agree that with Commissioner Stark that we're not. It would be good to have something in hand. I guess my next thought goes around spheres of influence and the 5-year time. I think a lot of, at least I've always, understanding exactly what a sphere of influence is tricky. I think a lot of cities think about their general plans and a 20-year time frame. I've heard it described as the engagement before marriage, that it really is a serious commitment. But you're telling us that the real policy is 5 years, and you should either annex within that time or it shouldn't be in your sphere. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily. What the act says is that the commission is to look at the spheres every 5 years, because within a 5-year window, the world changes, the life changes for a lot of folks, changes for a lot of cities, changes for the county. And so on a much shorter time frame, we should be looking at these spheres and adjusting accordingly. Ultimately, in my mind, what a sphere tells a community is that you ought to be planning for this area to come into your city, your respective city. And what that means in planning is figuring out the infrastructure needs you're going to need for that, figuring out how you're going to fund, whether it's commercial, residential, a combination of that, using the balance of your city's revenues and resources on how you're going to do that. How are you going to provide schools? How are you going to provide parks? How are you going to provide police and fire, right? So all of these resources are a demand that ultimately comes with that. And those types of decisions require a lot of planning and a lot of funding to make sure they happen adequately. And you can't do that in a 5-year time frame for most communities. I mean, it just isn't something that's a luxury for many. They need that long lead up time to figure out how they're going to do that. What piece can they add to their city that will help bring in those revenue funds that we can get the parks and the police stations up and running and the fire departments, right? Those are the things that need to happen. From a LAFCO standpoint, what we want to see is embedded in their planning documents, either a general plan or specific plan or some sort of element, is how are they going to really look at these components? How are they going to implement them when the time comes, when that application and the developer wants to build, so that it comes out in whole, good for everybody.
Okay, so a 20-year time frame isn't, we just review it with the MSR every 5 years to make sure that that still makes sense, and that they, if they are planning to expand, that they are engaged in the correct planning to accommodate that. We're driven by MSRs. I think the cities and the county have been largely driven by RENA. And I think
the issue right now with expansion requests from the cities that I'm familiar with have to do with county development occurring on their borders, and at what point would those come into the city? And of course, the county wants to get the RENA numbers to meet their, but the cities are going to be stuck to some extent. So that's the issue. And I think if you were talking more about, in the context of MOAs, how do we deal with that issue? I know the county, and I'm involved with the city of Goleta and the county are trying to explore that now. What are we going to do about traffic and services and with this development from our 6th cycle RENA? So I think if you put it in that context, you're likely to get more interest from the cities. Then the next context is 2031, and we're going to have a lot more. And that's where I think our SALC grant, and it's premature to, we need that grant, we need information, but it's that 7th RENA cycle that we want to get ready for, and even if we don't fully resolve it, we want to at least air the issues prior to that. So I'm not sure we need an exact process, because in the grant we're going to do workshops, and I think we would want to incorporate this into the workshops. I'm willing, to work in with the cities and things, but we don't have everybody on the board. We don't have the entire county represented in the same way on this board. So I think having us be liaisons, we could do it, but I'm not quite sure it's we've got apples to apples across the county. So and I think that was option C. So I would be content working with A, but again, framing it in a way that is really salient for the community, for the different cities right now. How are they going to deal with the county's new development on their borders? And then getting ready for cycle 6 once we get that resolved. I mean, cycle 7.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Commissioner Hartman, through the chair. I would agree. I think cycle 7 is going to be something critical for us to think about when that cycle gets generated and the new numbers come out. There's going to be a whole other set of planning involved in trying to address that need. And that, I think, sets us up well with adopting a sphere now, kind of status quo, and then 2031, that arena cycle's coming due. We're going to also be looking at amending spheres, and maybe even interim periods we can amend spheres as well. But certainly by 31, we're going to be looking at a 5-year cycle where we're going to be inherently completing another series of service reviews, and we'll have the knowledge of where that cycle is dictating some pressures for each of these communities. And to get to the point about the arena numbers and county and cities sort of fighting over who gets the number, there's always an opportunity through an annexation to transfer those numbers, right?
Or not. I mean,
Yeah,
the
or
county.
not, right? I mean, to some extent, I get that the county wants to sort of maybe approve a development on the fringe of a city and sort of get credit for those numbers, but equally, they could just say, we no longer are responsible for that affordable housing. The city will take on that responsibility and will move that whole development into the city.
Yeah, but we still, I think the law was going to change, but each jurisdiction is assigned their numbers, and they've got to meet those numbers, and they're being monitored to ensure that they do. And if you give them up, then how are you going to meet them? So that's kind of the dilemma. We have 4,143, I think, units plus the buffers in South County. We can't afford to give those to the city. We need to keep because we would be penalized as not being in compliance if we gave, anyway. But so the issue is, right now, cities and the county are engaged in discussions about how and if some of these developments should be transferred into the cities, how that would work. And that is very salient, and if we wanted LAFCO to have an MOA and play a role, that's the issue that I'm aware of that we're engaged in discussions about. We're not yet thinking about cycle 7. And we'll have our SALT grant. We'll bring a lot to the table with that. But if we want to get things off the ground now, then I think we have to make it relevant.
Any other comments from Santa Barbara?
Yeah, over here. Thank you. Just kind of following up on Supervisor Hartman's point, I think one of the really nice things about the MOA process is it does give you the opportunity to come to a shared understanding of how Reno would be handled. And it doesn't have to be a 100% transfer. All these things can be negotiated. And I believe there's other considerations that can be taken into account as well, such as future transportation projects, traffic mitigation, other things. I guess the question that I have for Mr. Prater is, if the city and if a city and the county can come to a shared understanding about transferring some degree of RENA, whether it's 100% or less than 100%, is there a role for SB-CAG in that when it comes to communicating with the state? Because my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is ultimately the assignment of the units went from the state to SB-CAG. So doesn't SB-CAG have some potential role to play on making adjustments to its larger allocation in terms of where those numbers go? Is there a role to play for SB-CAG here, either directly or in communication with state HCD on these issues?
Commissioner Kiriakou, to the chair, I would agree 100%. SB-CAG has a direct role in all of that. So they are effective the MPO. They work with HCD, allocate through a methodology where the arena numbers go, and ultimately communicate back and forth. So LAFCOs have an indirect role in that an annexation might come before this commission, and in which case a city and a county could have an agreement through the tax exchange process, in which they exchange a number of things, mitigation fees, arena numbers, on whatever percentage, and that's a sole agreement between the two. That just comes before the commission as information about whether or not the commission feels appropriately the annexation should occur, given these negotiations that took place between those two agencies. And yes, ultimately, if that were to play out and an annexation were to occur, then SB-CAG has to get brought back into the conversation, and they are the vehicle in which you relay that information back to the state.
And so just to follow up, so based on how a sphere was handled, a future annexation was handled through an MOA, if you had multiple properties, some that, let's say, are not currently part of a housing element and some that are, there would be room to maneuver between the larger pie to how you allocate things.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yep. Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Chair Patino. And I just wanted to reaffirm that I think that, SB-CAG is definitely one of the places to do this. I know in some of the other counties I've talked to, the cities take all the RENA numbers, and the unincorporated area doesn't, in part because they understand that cities are better at handling large municipal areas, and that's kind of when the concept out there. Somehow in our area, we've just kind of spread it out by population, just kind of evenly, and maybe in future cycles, through SBCAG, we might be able to look at that a little bit more in detailed and have kind of a look into it. And is it still appropriate to do it in the unincorporated areas? So, things like that or Commissioner Hartman's looking at there, that could be decided at SBCAG. And I do think we have that ability to transfer some of those through a state HCD. She's telling me no, but that's what I see other counties doing it. So I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, it was, I just, if Chat GPT is right, it was AB 2675 in the 23-24 session that proposed, but it never passed. So, and if the county, for example, it might pay Goleta to take its numbers because Goleta would have to pay for the services. But that's not allowed under current law. It was proposed. So once SBCAG makes its allocation, we're stuck. So that's the place. And this time, 2/3 of it had to come in South County. That was decreed by the state based on other criteria, rent burden, et cetera.
Okay. So something to stay tuned to. It seems like that's evolving legislation around that, and that we should all be engaged in that as we go down that route. Something that just kind of came up here in one of the discussions about sphere of influences that I had heard and was just curious about is that you said that sphere of influences should be in some type of general plan or planning document that a city has. Does that generally happen throughout all of our 8 cities? Or is there some cases where that doesn't? They're not in planning documents?
I don't know the specifics of that. I haven't delved deep into each of the city's general plan. Generally, there is some policy conversation about areas that they want. Many of them have adopted sphere boundaries or planning areas, as they term them. But they're not necessarily coexistent with what this commission adopts.
And so that might be that low-hanging fruit that I was talking about. Going back, and when these come back to us for readoption, it seems that if they're not even in a planning document for a community, that seems like that makes sense that they plan to do something else. And so that might be something we look at when we have that back here. I mean, like I said, I think of just asking them would be great, but also looking at their planning documents. Those are public. They should be out there, and see where those planning documents align with current spheres of influence would be helpful for this body. Thanks.
Commissioner Snark, did you wish to make comments?
Actually, I had a question. I'm not sure who it's to. I attended some conference in which they talked about housing laws. And there was somebody from the state HCD there. And she apparently was a fairly high-ranking person, and she swore up and down that the 7th Circuit was not going to be a culture war like the 6th Circuit, that the HCD was going to be more collaborative, and they were going to reach out to the local governments more promptly, and so that the people would have more time. And I was curious about whether there's been any evidence of this happening or any information as to how HCD is actually going to approach the seventh cycle at this point. It'd be good to know how they're going to do it.
It sounds like you're the only one that probably can answer this, Mr. Prater.
I would defer that to our city representatives on your end.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from your staff? Are they engaging in prep for cycle 7? I don't.
Commissioner Hartman?
Well, in the county, we get regular updates, or I do, from P&D about their interactions with HCD, and it's mainly on the current, how we're implementing the current. This is highly political, and it depends on the legislature, it depends on the governor, and I think even a high-level staff person at HCD is going to take their cues from all these housing laws and how intensely certain legislators feel about this.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments up here? Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. Can I get a motion? Second, any further discussion?
There is an option to just table this item and bring it back once we get underway in a contract with the SOLT grant, is kind of what I heard was a more appropriate time, maybe to, or direct staff to at least continue our outreach to the cities and ask for their input.
We might want to, table it and, like you said, wait till the SALT grant comes out and then go back to our appropriate cities and find out what they think, our staff members think we should do.
I support tabling down here.
Excuse me,
I support tabling down here.
table, okay.
Yeah, I support option A, and for LAFCO to explore working with the county and cities on this issue of RENA Cycle 6 and how these areas could be transferred into cities as smoothly as possible.
Okay, did I have a motion down there to table it? Is that what the motion was?
No, there was no motion.
Oh, there was no motion, okay. Okay, so you made the motion?
Yeah, I move option A with that.
Okay, is there a second?
Nelson will second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for option A. Any further discussion?
I have a question for the motion maker.
Go ahead.
Does option A, according to Commissioner Hartman, does that include waiting until we know whether we get the grant or not before we communicate?
It really doesn't have to. I mean, it's October, it could. I mean, these discussions are happening now. If LAFCO could play a role, I think it would help us, give us a broader perspective. So I don't think the SALT grant is really for Cycle 7, in my view.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
for clarification for the other commissioners, my view of option A is essentially continuing on with our MOA program as we have before, and then essentially allowing the county members and the city members to go back to their respective county and city staff and make it a higher priority from their departments. We already have it as a priority and a work item. We're just asking our fellow representatives that will be engaging in these continued conversations to make it a higher priority at that level. So,
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Commissioner Guyer,
No.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Patino.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So the next item is information, item number 1, and the clerk will please read the item into the record.
Chair Patino and members of the commission, information item number 1 is to receive and file a report on independent special district commissioner election results.
And our executive officer, Mr. Prater, will present.
thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the final election results for our independent special district. We had a total of 30 ballots ultimately that were submitted. That was after a runoff election. The initial election became narrowly close, in which not one candidate was the majority winner. And so we had a runoff of the top 2 candidates. And Ms. Doreen Lee Johnson ultimately became victor out of the second runoff ballot of those 30. And so she has been appointed, as you witnessed. She's taken her oath. She's now a full-fledged regular commission member. I will note, again, I made that same error on the year. It is not 2027, rather it is 2026. I I think that was my subconscious, just not wanting to have to go through this election process any further. But unfortunately, at the end of this month, we'll be initiating this election again, in which we'll be soliciting nominations for that same seat. Certainly, the expectation is that Commissioner Johnson will get herself nominated again, but others could easily be nominated, and we'll go through the election process in which we hope to get that person seated again properly by February, before the March expiration deadline.
Thank you. Any comments, discussion from the commission? Commissioner Hartman?
Well, I think it was a really good election where the candidates went out and met people and talked to people, and congratulations to Ms. Johnson. And I think LAFCO is sort of esoteric, but I think people are starting to appreciate how important it is.
Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. And Santa Barbara, I left you out. Anything down there?
No one down here.
Thank you. The next item is information item number 2. Will the clerk please read the item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, information item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Planning Grant with the Department of Conservation.
And our executive officer, Mr. Prater, will be doing the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I've already spilled the beans on this one, but on June 5th, the commission did adopt a resolution that made us a lead applicant for this grant. And with that, the commission directed that staff return with the terms and conditions that would be applicable, because we didn't have those on hand at the time of that decision. And so this item is to bring that back. The terms and conditions of the agreement are included in your attachment. So you can have a discussion about those terms and conditions. I will note much of that is not editable. It's essentially where it's highlighted, the name of who we are, largely our scope and work plan, our budget are going to be components of this, but the bulk of those terms and conditions are standardized and not really open for discussion by DOC. So, but with that, it's here, it's included for your information, and as I indicated, it looks like we are likely to be awarded this grant, and the expectation is that we would enter into a formal agreement sometime in January at a January meeting, or maybe shortly thereafter.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commission? Any questions?
I have a simple question, I think. This is an information item, is it correct? So we're not really noticed to take any action on it. So, my understanding is correct. If we get the grant, we have now seen the terms and conditions, and they're not changeable in essence. So we might as well let it fly and see what happens when we get the money. Do we have to come back if we get the grant to approve it?
Yes, so we will be.
We have to come back with the contract
with the
and
contract.
grant.
Yep.
I only have one further question. Is there anything that bothers our EO about the amount of reporting that you have to do to the state in connection with receiving this grant? It seems like you got to do a fair amount of reports and things like that. I guess that's common with any grant that you get.
Thank you, for Commissioner Stark, for asking that question, because yes, all of it worries me. There is a lot of additional reporting. And as you know, we're a staff of essentially 2. We brought on a clerk to be a part-time help. We'll be having a short gap within our short members of 2. And so, if the commission is amenable to all of that, we'll engage in the effort. We do have partners. We may ultimately ask for some additional help, either through contract service. We may ask to increase the hours of our new hiree, we may engage in the commission into asking for more employees. So that's all future stuff to come. We're going to kind of take it step by step. We're going to monitor how we can get all of this work done. But yeah, the workload does worry me on whether or not we think we're going to adequately be able to perform all of that, plus all of this MOA discussions, plus all of the municipal service reviews, plus all of the annexations that come forward and dealing with that. So yeah, it's on my mind, certainly. So I appreciate the question. It's nice to be able to inform the commission that likely I'll be back at some point, whether it be through the budget process or earlier than that, indicating that we may need some additional help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from Santa Barbara?
No.
Oh, okay.
I had a question.
Oh, Commissioner Hartman?
Thank you. I'm involved with another state grant, and it's only reimbursable. You have to do the work and then submit the claim, and then they'll pay you. Is that how this works? It makes it tricky.
That I still have to study. I know it is a reimbursable clause. However, in my early discussions with the program manager at DOC, they kind of indicated that they may kind of give us a chunk, and then we sort of work through that. But it kind of just depends on ultimately how the agreement plays out.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. The next item is information item number 3. Would the clerk please read the item into the record?
Chair Patino and members of the commission, information item number 3 is to receive and file a report on travel options to the annual LAFCO conference in San Diego that will be held October 21st through the 24th of 2025.
Thank you. Executive Officer Mr. Prater will be making the presentation.
All right, I'm going to pass this over to Analyst Clerk.
Thank you. As you are all aware, our 2025 LAFCO conference is coming up in the next couple weeks and will be held in San Diego. It is actually held on October 22nd through the 24th. However, due to the longer distance in location and travel purposes, we have set up primarily travel for many attendees to be on the 21st and checking into the hotel. We do have a good number of commissioners who expressed an interest in attending this year. Commissioners Patino, Stark, Kiriakou, Magana, and Johnson, as well as 3 staff members who will all be attending. And due to the distance, we wanted to provide our commissioners with the various travel options to get to the conference. We have noted in our report that all commissioners are able to use their own private vehicles to travel, in which we will reimburse for round-trip travel at a rate of 70 cents per mile. This is in fashion with what the County of Santa Barbara has for reimbursement. We do also offer reimbursement for public transportation, in which we list train and airfare, train being a business class ticket rate round trip, airfare at a coach ticket rate round trip. We would also reimburse if anyone did choose public transportation to additionally if they needed taxi or ride share in order to get to and from the hotel, as well as a rental car option in which any commissioner and or staff who chooses to use a rental car would be reimbursed for the cost of the rental as well as the fuel. We do ask any option that is chosen that you do keep your receipts and provide those so that we can include it with our reimbursement documentation. Lodging was already reserved for everyone who expressed an interest in attending, and we were able to get a discounted rate for the block of rooms. Most of the meals are provided in the conference. However, due to having to travel a little bit earlier. There are some meals that would not be covered, in which we will provide a reimbursement at the cost that the County of Santa Barbara provides for per diem, and which we have listed for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We did include additional attachments in regards to the current average cost of travel, whether it be through airfare, train, and/or rental car services. And you can view those attachments in your report. So we are very excited for the conference coming up, as well as the increased commissioner attendance. So.
Chair Patino, I would add, I did confer with the hotel. They do have a shuttle, so if you do want to take flight, they do have a free shuttle that goes to and from the airport to the hotel conference itself. And largely, this was placed on here because we do have a number of attendees that this will give us a platform in which to discuss how best do we want to ride share together? How do we want to travel? I know some might be attending later in the day or some, whatever that arrangement may occur. But if somebody's looking for companion to ride down there, it is a bit of a drive. And then maybe we can get together and offer that for one another to make a safe trip down.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion from the commission? Commissioner Stark?
I probably ought to say that I guess I was volunteered to be on the panel for the Cal LAFCO 101, which is actually the morning before the actual commissions. So I said, if I read this correctly, you've got rooms reserved for the evening before the thing actually starts.
Yeah, Tuesday
That's
evening.
good. I was told that the first lunch after the Cal LAFCO 101, they're not paying for that. You have to root around the San Diego Harbor for edible food after that. So that's happening. I'd encourage the new LAFCO members to show up at the Cal LAFCO 101, which if I understand correctly, and I might not, they're going to do in the form of the Celebrity Pyramid Game Show. Now, how they're going to get celebrities and pyramids into LAFCO, I don't know. But it promises to be a bit of a hoot.
I think you're the celebrity, Shane.
No, I've already discussed this. LAFCO people are not celebrities. We're public servants. Celebrities are people that the general public is currently aware of. I don't think general public ever heard of LAFCO. We got buttons that says, ask me about LAFCO. So I'd seriously push back on the celebrity sobriquet, if that. But in any event, yeah.
I think you're right.
Council days.
You have to tell people what LAFCO is, so.
Yeah, they don't know. It's a fine organization.
Any discussion from Santa Barbara? Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No, Chair Patino and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Yeah, not right now.
Okay, are there any commissioner announcements or requests for future agenda items? Anything from Santa Barbara?
No, not now. Thank you.
Are there any executive officer comments?
I do have a comment. I wanted to welcome our newest commission clerk, Isla Fennell. She's going to be acting as our commission clerk. She too took her oath today, so she's official. Isla was selected out of over 350 different resumes that were submitted for the opening slot.
Really?
We evaluated, we ultimately narrowed that down to a dozen or so for interviews. It was a highly competitive process in which there was tough competition here amongst the candidates, and Isla excelled from the beginning.
Sounds like the NFL recruitment.
Had you ever heard of LAFCO before?
I don't know if any of them have heard of LAFCO. One of the questions we did ask was, what do you know about LAFCO? And it was some interesting research that was done, certainly. But Isla has indicated she's originally from Boston, Massachusetts. So she's a graduate from UCSB and Bachelor's of Science and a degree in Psychological and Brain Science. And she lives in
You were
Goleta.
going to find that useful for this committee.
She lives in Goleta with her German Shepherd and her tabby cat. And she started on September 15th. So we are pleased to welcome her, and please take the time to get to know her. And
Thank you.
she'll be assuming the role of clerk kind of here and into the future. So thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you.
One last comment. It is October. It is Cancer Awareness Month, so I'm wearing my pin today. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I have a friend and a colleague that had passed from that, and a mother-in-law that survived it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for bringing that awareness to the public. The Santa Barbara County Local Agency Formation Commission is adjourned to 1 o'clock on November 6, 2025 in Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you.